I spent Mother's Day completely alone, while my children went off to a friend's party, even though I had confirmed with them the day before that they would be coming to brunch, and they had both said yes. I cried the entire afternoon in the empty living room, but that very night they returned, asking for money to pay their bills. What they didn't know was that I had already bought my one-way ticket, and that changed everything. The table had been set since 11 o'clock in the morning. Clean linens, the good china I only brought out for special occasions, the cloth napkins I had ironed the night before. In the center, a modest arrangement of flowers I bought with the last few dollars left from my Social Security check. The chicken was in the oven, the potatoes peeled, the salad prepared, everything ready for Mother's Day brunch. I confirmed with them the day before. I called Tanisha first. She answered in a rush, like always, with that tone of voice she used when she was multitasking while talking to me. I asked if they were coming tomorrow. She said, "Yes, Mama, of course we'll be there." Then I called Malik. He was more direct. "Yeah, Ma, we're coming. Don't worry about it." He hung up fast. I was relieved. I thought that this time would be different. I thought that this time they would remember. I settled onto the living room sofa and waited. I looked at the clock at 12 o'clock. Nothing. By 12:30, I started to feel that familiar knot in my stomach. At 1 o'clock sharp, the chicken was ready. I took it out of the oven. The smell filled the empty house. I set the table and sat down. I waited a little longer. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I dialed Tanisha's number. No answer. I tried Malik. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. The chicken was getting cold. The potatoes, too. I got up and walked to the window. The street was quiet. Some families passed by, walking, laughing, mothers with their children, flowers in their hands, hugs. I returned to the table. I sat alone across from all those empty plates. Then I understood. They weren't coming again. Not this year, just like last year, just like my birthday, just like Christmas. They always had an excuse, always something more important than me. I stayed seated there for I don't know how long. The clock ticked to 3, then 4, then 5. The evening light began to shift. The shadows stretched longer in the room. Everything was so silent that I could hear my own breathing. I could hear the sound of my heart breaking once more. At 6 o'clock in the evening, I got up and put the food in the fridge. No one was going to eat it. I cleared the dishes, folded the linens, put away the napkins, and tossed the flowers in the trash. They were wilted anyway, just like me. I sat back down on the sofa, and that's when the tears started to fall. They weren't loud tears, they weren't dramatic sobs. They were silent tears, the kind that hurt the most because they come from deep inside, from the place where you keep all the disappointments you don't want to admit, the place where you know the truth but prefer to pretend it doesn't exist. I cried, thinking about all the Mother's Days I'd spent alone. I cried, thinking about all the times they had promised to come and didn't. I cried, thinking that I had given my whole life for them, and they couldn't give me even one afternoon. I'm 70 years old. 70 years of life, 48 years of being a mother. And that day, in that empty room, I realized something I had been denying for a long time. My children didn't love me, or maybe they did love me, but not enough. Not enough to remember, not enough to be present, not enough to care. Night fell, and I was still there, unmoving, without turning on the lights. Just me, the darkness, and that weight on my chest that I didn't know how to remove anymore. I thought about calling them again. I thought about sending them a text. I thought about telling them how I felt. But I didn't, because I knew they would say the same old thing. "Sorry, Mama. Things got complicated. Next time." Always the next time, which never came. It was almost 10 o'clock at night when I heard the car pull up outside. I recognized the engine's sound. It was Malik's. Then I heard voices, laughter, footsteps in the yard, the key in the lock, the door opening. They flipped on the living room light and saw me sitting there in the dark, with swollen eyes, my soul shattered. Tanisha was the first to speak. "Hey, Mama, we just thought we'd stop by." She was wearing a fancy dress, her makeup perfect. She smelled of expensive perfume and alcohol. Malik came in behind her. He was also dressed up, new shirt, shiny shoes. He looked at me with that casual smile he used when he wanted something. "Hey, Ma, how was your day?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I had a knot in my throat that kept me from speaking. I looked at them and saw everything. I saw the truth I had been avoiding. They had been at a party, having fun, drinking, laughing, while I was crying alone in this empty room. Tanisha sat down in the armchair across from me. Malik remained standing. There was an uncomfortable silence. Then Tanisha pulled out her phone, looked at the screen, and looked back at me. "Mama, we need to talk about something important." Malik approached and sat on the arm of the sofa. "Yeah, Ma, we have a problem. We need you to help us." Tanisha nodded. "It's urgent, Mama. It's the monthly bills. Everything piled up. Malik's rent, my credit card. It's about $3,000. We need you to lend it to us." I looked at them both. There were my children. The children I had worked for until my back broke. The children for whom I had given up everything. The children who hadn't come to brunch with me on Mother's Day. But they came that very night to ask me for money. Something broke inside me at that moment, something that was never going to be put back together. I looked at them and thought about the envelope I had tucked away in my bedroom. The envelope with the bus ticket, the one-way ticket with no return. They didn't know yet. They didn't know that I had already made a decision. They didn't know that this was going to be the last time they saw me like this, quiet, submissive, available. They didn't know that everything was about to change, and while they continued talking about their problems, their debts, their needs, I only thought about one thing. My name is Vivian Sterling. I'm 70 years old and I already bought my one-way ticket. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when my children hugged me when they got home from school. A time when Tanisha ran to me yelling, "Mama," and clung to my neck. A time when Malik sought me out to tell me everything he had learned that day. There was a time when I was important to them. We were poor, but we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were happy. We lived in a small house on the edge of Cloverdale, Georgia. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen where the 4 of us barely fit. My husband Marcus worked construction. I cleaned houses. Between the 2 of us, we scraped together enough to eat and pay the rent. We didn't have anything left over, but we didn't go without either. The children were small. Tanisha was 6 years old. Malik was 4. They ran around the house barefoot. They played with rocks and sticks because we didn't have money for toys. But they didn't care. They were children. They were innocent. They didn't yet know that we were poor. They didn't yet know that other families had more. I bathed them every night in that old tub we had. I washed their hair carefully, trimmed their nails, put on the clean clothes I had washed by hand that afternoon, put them to bed, and told them stories until they fell asleep. They were my whole life. My reason for waking up every morning. Marcus was a good man, quiet, hardworking. He didn't talk much, but he loved me in his own way. He came home tired from work, sat at the table, and ate what I had prepared. Sometimes he looked at me and said, "Thank you, Vivian." That was enough for me. I didn't need more. But everything changed when Marcus died. It was an accident at the construction site. A beam fell wrong. He didn't suffer, they told me. It was quick, as if the speed of death made it hurt less, as if it were a comfort. He was 42 years old. I was 38. Tanisha was 12, and Malik was 10. Suddenly, I was alone with 2 children, no steady job, no savings, nothing more than my hands and my will to keep going. The survivor benefits they gave me after Marcus's death were pitiful, $500 a month. It wasn't enough even for food. So I worked. I worked like I had never worked in my life. I cleaned 3 houses in the morning, washed other people's clothes in the afternoon, ironed at night. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. I got up before dawn, and I went to bed after midnight. My hands became calloused, my back started aching, my knees began to give out, but I didn't care because my children were okay. Because Tanisha and Malik had food on the table, because they could go to school, because they had clean clothes, because they had shoes, because they had a mother who would give her life for them. And I was ready to give it. Tanisha was the oldest, always more serious, more responsible. She helped me with Malik, looked after him when I had to work late, prepared dinner for him, and helped him with his homework. She was an adult child in a child's body, and I felt guilty about that, for robbing her of her childhood, for forcing her to grow up so fast. Malik was different, cheerful, a dreamer, always inventing things. He drew on any paper he could find. He told me that when he grew up, he was going to be an artist, that he was going to be famous, that he was going to buy me a big house, and that I would never have to work again. And I believed him, because mothers always believe their children. The years passed. They grew up. The house felt smaller and smaller. Tanisha started complaining. She said her friends had better things, better houses, better clothes, better lives. She looked at me with that silent reproach that hurt more than any word, as if it were my fault we were poor, as if I wasn't doing everything possible. Malik changed, too. He stopped drawing. He stopped dreaming. He started hanging out with other boys. He came home late and wouldn't tell me where he had been. When I asked, he answered in monosyllables. He became distant, cold, like a stranger living in my house. But I kept working, kept sacrificing myself, because that's what mothers do. Because I thought that someday they would understand, that someday they would be grateful, that someday they would tell me, "Thank you, Mama, for everything you did for us." When Tanisha turned 18, she got a job at a downtown store. She started earning her own money. I thought she would help me. I thought that now that she was working, I could rest a little, but no, Tanisha saved every cent. She bought new clothes, new shoes, makeup, perfumes. She went out with her friends, and when I asked her to contribute something to the house, she looked at me like I was asking for her kidney. Malik barely finished school. He didn't want to go to college. He said college wasn't for him, that he was going to get a job, that he was going to make money, and that he didn't need more education. I didn't insist. I was tired of fighting. I was tired of everything. He got a job at a mechanic's shop. He earned little, but it was something. I thought he would stay with me, that he would help me with expenses, but after 6 months, he told me he was moving out. He had found an apartment with some friends. He needed his space. He was a man now, and he couldn't stay living with me forever. I remained silent. I didn't tell him that I felt abandoned. I didn't tell him that I was afraid of being alone. I didn't say anything. I just helped him pack his things. I gave him money for the first month's rent, money I didn't have, money I took from my meager savings, and I watched him leave without looking back. Tanisha left 2 years later. She met a man, fell in love, and got married. She didn't invite me to the wedding. Well, she did invite me, but it was one of those obligatory invitations you make because you have to. I went to the wedding. I sat in a corner. No one talked to me. No one introduced me. No one made me feel important. I was just the mother of the bride, an afterthought, an obligation. Tanisha's marriage lasted 3 years. Then she divorced, came back to my house crying, telling me the man had cheated on her, that he had treated her badly, that she needed a place to stay. I took her in. Of course I took her in. She was my daughter. But she didn't thank me. She stayed for 6 months, recovered, met another man, and left again without saying goodbye. Malik never married. He had girlfriends, many girlfriends, all fleeting, all the same. He introduced them to me when he needed to impress them. "Look, this is my mama. Bless her heart, she lives alone, always so sacrificial." And they looked at me with pity, with that pity that makes you feel small, invisible, unnecessary. The years kept passing. I kept working, even though I couldn't clean houses like before, even though my back hurt so much that there were days I couldn't get out of bed, even though my hands trembled, even though my knees wouldn't hold me up. But they kept coming. Tanisha and Malik kept coming when they needed something. Money, almost always. $200 for rent, $300 for a debt, $500 for an emergency. They never quite explained. And I gave. I always gave, even if I had to skip buying my medicine, even if I had to eat less, even if I had to turn off the heat in winter to save, because they were my children, because I loved them, because I thought that someday they would change, that someday they would grow up, that someday they would realize everything I had done for them. But that day never came. And while I waited for that day, they kept taking, kept asking, kept forgetting about me until that Mother's Day. Until that day I sat in the empty living room, crying, waiting, slowly dying inside. And they arrived that night, smelling of partying and having fun, of a life I never had, and asked me for $3,000 as casually as asking for a glass of water. That's when something clicked in my head, when I understood that this was never going to change, that they were never going to change, that I could keep giving and giving until I dropped dead, and they would keep taking without thanks, without remembering, without loving. That night, I didn't give them the money. I told them I didn't have it. Tanisha got mad. She made that face she made when things didn't go her way. "But Mama, you always have something tucked away. You always help us. It can't be that right now. You have nothing." Her voice had that accusatory tone, as if I owed her something, as if it were my obligation to solve her life. Malik was more direct. "Ma, we seriously need this money. It's not a whim. These are real debts. If we don't pay, we're going to get into trouble." He looked at me, expecting me to give in. Because I always gave in. I always ended up giving them what they asked for, even if it left me with nothing. But this time, I didn't give in. I looked at them and told them no, that I didn't have that money, that I barely had enough to live on, that my Social Security check was only $1,200 a month, and that I had to pay for electricity, water, food, and medicine with that I had nothing left over, that I couldn't help them this time. Tanisha got up from the armchair and exhaled in frustration. "Unbelievable, Mama. Right now, when we really need you, you can't help us." Malik also stood up. "Well, then we'll have to figure it out some other way. Thanks anyway." His thank you sounded empty, fake, like everything that came out of his mouth lately. They left without saying goodbye, without asking how I was, without noticing that I had been crying all afternoon, without seeing the table I had set for them, without caring that it was Mother's Day and they had left me alone. They left and closed the door, and I stayed there again, in that empty living room, in that empty house, in that empty life. I stayed awake all night. I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't stop going over everything, the years, the sacrifices, the times I had gone without eating so they could eat, the times I had worked sick to pay for their school, the times I had given them even what I didn't have, and they didn't even remember. They weren't even grateful. To them, I was just an ATM, a place to come when they needed something, a resource, not a person, not their mother, just a source of money that should always be available. The next day, I got up early. I hadn't slept, but I got up anyway. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat in the kitchen, and made a decision. I was going to investigate. I was going to know the truth, because something didn't add up. Malik had a job. Tanisha did too. Both of them earned more than me. So why did they always need money? Where was all their income going? I opened my phone and went onto social media, something I almost never did because I didn't quite understand how those things worked. But Tanisha had shown me once. She had shown me how to search for people, how to see their photos. I searched for Tanisha's profile first, and there it all was. Photos and more photos. Tanisha in expensive restaurants, Tanisha in new dresses, Tanisha on trips to the beach, Tanisha at parties, Tanisha with drinks in her hand, Tanisha smiling, Tanisha living a life that, according to her, she couldn't afford. A life full of luxuries while she was asking me for rent money. I kept scrolling. More photos, more restaurants, more clothes, more trips, posts from a week ago, 2 days ago, yesterday, last night. A picture from the party she went to instead of coming to brunch with me. She was with her friends, all made up, all in fancy clothes. The description read, "Perfect day with my favorites. Hearts, emojis, happiness. A perfect day." While I was crying alone in my house, while I was waiting for them to come, while I was saving the food no one was going to eat. A perfect day. I searched for Malik's profile. More of the same. Photos at bars, photos with friends, photos with new motorcycles, photos in designer clothes, photos at concerts, photos at events. A full life. An expensive life. A life that didn't match someone who couldn't pay his bills. I stared at those photos for hours. I felt a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't just sadness. It was something deeper. It was the feeling of having been cheated, of having been used, of having been foolish for all those years. Then I saw something that chilled my blood, a group chat. Tanisha had accidentally posted a screenshot, or maybe not accidentally. Maybe she didn't care who saw it. It was a group called the Sterling Kids. It was just the two of them, Tanisha and Malik. The screenshot showed part of a conversation. Malik had written, "Did you ask the old woman yet?" Tanisha replied, "Not yet, but I know how I'm going to work her. I'll tell her it's urgent. You know how she is. She always falls for it." Malik, LOL. Yeah, poor thing. But hey, that's what she had us for, right? To take care of her when she's old, and in the meantime, she can fund us a little longer. I read that once, twice, 3 times. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The old woman, poor thing, fund us a little longer. That's how they talked about me. That's what they thought of me. As a burden, as a future obligation, as someone to make fun of. In the meantime, I closed the phone. My hands were shaking. I felt nauseous. I got up and went to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 70-year-old woman, tired, worn out, with deep wrinkles, completely white hair, sad eyes, hands deformed from working so much. This was me, Vivian Sterling, the woman who had given her whole life for 2 children who called her the old woman. The woman who had broken her back working so they could have everything she never had. The woman who kept giving them money while they mocked her in their private chats. I went back to my bedroom and opened the drawer of my nightstand. I took out an old box where I kept important papers, documents, receipts, and proof of payments. I started reviewing everything. I mentally tallied up how much money I had given them over the last 5 years. $20,000. In 5 years, I had given them $20,000. Money I took from my Social Security check, money I saved by not buying things for myself, money I borrowed and was still paying back, $20,000 that they spent on parties, clothes, trips, and whims, while telling me it was for emergencies, for urgent debts, for necessities. They lied to me. They had always lied to me, and I had always believed them. Because that's what foolish mothers do, believe their children even when all the signs say they shouldn't. I put the papers away, closed the box, and sat on the edge of my bed. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. If I didn't change this, no one would. They were never going to wake up one day and decide to treat me better. They were never going to be grateful. They were never going to appreciate me. They were never going to love me as I loved them. I had 2 options. Continue like this until I died. Keep being the old woman they fund. Keep giving them everything until I had nothing left, until I died alone and forgotten in this house, while they continued with their perfect lives, posting happy photos online. Or I could do something different, something I had never done, something that scared me just to think about. I could choose myself for the first time in 70 years. I could think about me. I could do something for me. I got up, went to the living room, and turned on the old computer I had, the one Malik had given me years ago when it was too slow for him. I went online and searched for retirement communities near the coast. I don't know why I searched for that. Maybe because I had always dreamed of seeing the ocean, of living near the water, of hearing the waves, of feeling the breeze. Things I never did because I was always too busy giving my life to others. Several results popped up. Quiet places, communities for older adults, small but respectable homes, affordable prices. Far from this city, far from this life, far from them. I wrote down some numbers, some names, some addresses. I turned off the computer, and there, sitting in the room where I had cried the day before, I started planning something I never thought I would do. I started planning my escape, my freedom, my new life. A life where Vivian Sterling wouldn't be the old woman, where she wouldn't be the funder, where she wouldn't be the forgotten mother. A life where I could simply be Vivian, a woman, a person, someone who matters. But first, I needed to know more. I needed to understand exactly how deep the deception went. I needed to see with my own eyes who my children really were. So I decided to do something I had never done. I decided to investigate them, follow them, and observe them without their knowledge. I called Eleanor. Eleanor Johnson, my old neighbor, the only person in this world who still treated me like a human being. I had helped her years ago when her husband died. I lent her money, I gave her food, I comforted her in her grief, and she never forgot it. Unlike my own children, Ellie knew how to be grateful. Ellie answered on the second ring. "Vivian, it is good to hear your voice. How are you?" Her voice was warm, real. We talked for a while. I told her a little, not everything. I couldn't tell her everything. I asked her for a favor. I needed her to help me get information. I needed to know where my children were going, what they were doing, and who they were with. Ellie didn't ask why. She just said, "Count on me." We arranged to meet the next day. That night, I slept a little better. Not because I was calm, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a purpose, a plan, a direction. I was no longer just the woman who waited. Now, I was the woman who acted. Ellie came to my house the next morning. She brought coffee and pastries. She sat with me at the kitchen table and listened. I told her everything. I showed her the screenshots I had saved. I showed her the receipts for the money I had given them. I showed her the photos on social media. Everything. Ellie listened in silence. When I finished, she just took my hand and said, "Vivian, this has to end." And I knew she was right. It had to end, but not just any way. It had to end the right way, a way that would give me back my dignity. Ellie knew people. She had contacts. Her nephew worked at a law firm. She told me she could get me an appointment, that he could help me organize my things, my papers, my money, my life. I accepted. 3 days later, I was sitting in an office across from a young lawyer. His name was Avery Jones. He was about 35. He was serious but kind. He offered me water and asked me to tell him my situation, and I talked. I talked more than I had talked in years. I told him about my children, about the money, about the lies, about how they treated me. I showed him everything I had collected. He took notes. He asked questions. Questions no one had ever asked me. Questions about me, about what I wanted, about what I needed. Avery explained several things to me. He explained that I was not obligated to give my children money, that they were adults responsible for their own lives, that I had the right to live peacefully, that I could do whatever I wanted with my money, my house, and my time. He talked to me about wills, bank accounts, and inheritance. He told me I could change everything, that I could protect the little I had, that I could make sure that when I died my things would go to whoever I decided, not necessarily my children. That conversation opened my eyes. I had never thought about those things. I always assumed that everything I had belonged to them, that when I died they would inherit, that was the natural order. But Avery made me understand that I could decide, that I was still alive, that I still had a voice, that I still had power. I asked him how much his services cost. He gave me a price, $500 for all the paperwork. It was a lot of money for me, more than I had available. But Ellie had lent me the money. She told me to pay her back when I could, or not to pay her back at all, that the important thing was for me to be okay. I hired Avery that same day. He asked for documents, deeds, bank papers, and receipts. I told him I would bring him everything. We agreed to meet the following week to start the process. I left that office feeling different, stronger, clearer, as if someone had turned on a light in a dark room where I had been living my whole life. Now I could see things as they were, not as I wanted them to be. That night I reviewed all my documents, the house deed, my old will, my bank accounts, my pension. Everything was in order, but nothing was the way I wanted it. The old will said everything went to Tanisha and Malik in equal parts, the house, the money, everything, as if they deserved it, as if they had done something to earn it. I decided that was going to change, but not yet. First, I needed to observe more, understand more, see how far their lying went, how deep their disrespect was. I needed to be completely sure before making decisions I couldn't reverse. I started following them discreetly, like an amateur detective. I knew where Malik worked and I knew where Tanisha lived. I started passing by those places, observing, taking mental notes. I saw Malik leave the mechanic's shop one Tuesday afternoon. He wasn't alone. He was with a young woman, very young, maybe 25 years old. They got into a new car, a car I didn't recognize, an expensive car. They drove off together, laughing, holding hands. I followed them on the bus. They went to a downtown restaurant, one of those places where the plates run $50. I watched them go in. I saw them sit next to the window. I saw them order wine. I watched as Malik showed her the menu, how he smiled at her, how he treated her like she was someone special. My son, who told me he couldn't pay his rent, was spending $100 on dinner. My son, who was asking me to borrow money, was in a new car. My son, who was supposedly broke, was living like he was swimming in money. I stayed outside the restaurant. I waited. I don't know why I waited. Maybe because I needed to see more. I needed to confirm what I already knew. They came out 2 hours later, still laughing, still happy. They kissed on the street, got into the car, and left. I returned home on the last bus of the night. I arrived tired, sad, but also surer, more convinced that what I was doing was right. The next day was Tanisha's turn. I knew she worked at an office in the mall. I went early. I sat on a bench outside her job. I waited. I saw her leave at lunchtime. She was with 2 friends, the same ones from the photos on social media. They went to a clothing store. I followed them. I went into the store behind them. I stood looking at the racks while I listened to them talk. Tanisha tried on a red dress. It cost $200. Her friends told her it looked beautiful, that she should buy it. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Yes, I'm taking it. I already paid off the debts anyway. Now I can treat myself." She already paid off the debts. The debts she asked me for $3,000 for 2 weeks ago. The debts that supposedly had her desperate. She had already paid them and was now buying a $200 dress like it was nothing. I left the store before them. I didn't want them to see me. I didn't want to confront them yet. It wasn't the right time. I went back home. I sat in my room and took out an old notebook I had. I started writing down everything I had seen, the dates, the places, the expenses, the lies. I called Avery the next day and told him what I had discovered. He listened to me. He said that all of it was useful, that it would help me make better decisions. He asked me if I was sure about what I wanted to do. I told him yes, surer than ever. We started the process. Avery drafted a new will, one where I decided who inherited what. He prepared documents to change the beneficiaries of my bank account. He prepared everything so that when I died, my children would not automatically receive anything, or they would receive the minimum, whatever I decided to give them. But we also talked about something else. We talked about what to do while I was alive. Avery suggested I open a new account, an account my children didn't know about, where I could keep my money, where they couldn't ask me because they wouldn't know it existed. I did exactly that. I opened an account at a different bank. I transferred most of my pension to that new account. I left only the minimum in the old account, just enough to make it seem like I barely had enough to live on, which was true. But now I had a little saved. A little that was only mine. A little that no one was going to take from me. I also started selling things. Old things I had in the house. Furniture I no longer used. Clothes that no longer fit me. Books, dishes, things I had accumulated over 50 years of life. I sold them online with the help of Ellie, who understood those things better than I did. It wasn't much money, 50 here, 100 there, but it added up. I saved every cent in my new account, my secret account, my escape fund, because that was what I was planning, an escape, a way out, a way to disappear from this life that was slowly killing me. Every day that passed, I was surer. I didn't want to continue like this anymore. I didn't want to be the mother who begged for crumbs of affection. I didn't want to be the old woman who funds them. I looked up bus tickets. I looked up distant destinations, places where no one knew me, where I could start over, where Vivian Sterling could be someone different, someone free. I found a coastal town about 600 miles from here, a small, quiet place, with cheap houses, with a view of the sea, with that ocean I always wanted to see. The ticket cost $70, one way. I saved that information. I hadn't bought it yet, but I knew I would soon. In the meantime, I kept pretending. I kept being the same Vivian as always when Tanisha or Malik called, which was rare. Very rare. 2 weeks passed without hearing from them. Not a call, not a text, nothing, as if I didn't exist, as if I had died and no one had noticed. But I was fine. For the first time in a long time, I was fine being alone, because I knew that loneliness was temporary, because I knew I was doing something, that I was taking control, that I was building something new. Ellie came to visit me often. We drank coffee. We talked. She told me about her grandchildren, about her life. I told her about my plans. She supported me. She told me I was doing the right thing, that I deserved to be happy, that I deserved to live for myself. One day, she said something that stuck with me. Vivian, you gave 50 years of your life for them. Now it's time for you to give yourself at least 10 years for you, before it's too late. And she was right. I was 70 years old. If I was lucky, I had 10 or 15 more years left. And I wanted to live them, truly live them. Not just exist, waiting for my children to remember that I had a name. I signed the new papers with Avery, the new will, the bank documents, everything legal. Everything in order. He gave me copies. He explained that now everything was protected, that I had done the right thing. He shook my hand as we said goodbye. He told me, "Take good care of yourself, Mrs. Sterling. You deserve the best." I left that office feeling light, as if a weight had been lifted off me, a weight of years, of decades, of a lifetime carrying guilt that wasn't mine. That night, I sat in front of the computer. I bought the ticket. A bus ticket, one way, destination, Coastal Haven. A town I didn't even know, but that would soon be my home. The departure date, in 2 months, enough time to organize everything, to tie up loose ends, to say goodbye to this life without making a sound. The ticket was tucked away in the drawer of my nightstand. I looked at it every night before sleeping. It was my reminder, my promise, my hope. In 2 months, I would leave here. In 2 months, I would be free. But before leaving, I needed to do something. I needed them to know. I needed them to understand what they had done. Not for revenge, not for hate, but for dignity, out of respect for myself, for all the mothers who keep quiet and endure until they can't anymore. I told Ellie my plan. She looked at me with those wise eyes of hers. She asked me if I was sure. I told her yes. She asked me if I wouldn't regret it later. I told her that the only thing I regretted was taking so long. Ellie helped me plan everything. We decided I would have a dinner, a last supper. I would invite Tanisha and Malik. I would tell them I had something important to announce. They would come. Of course they would come. They would think I was going to give them something. Money, the house, something. They always thought I was going to give them something, but this time it would be me who took. I would take my life back. I would take my dignity back. I would take my name back. We set the date. Saturday in 3 weeks. Enough time to prepare everything, enough time to ensure I wouldn't back out. I called Tanisha first. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello, Mama. What's going on?" Her voice sounded distracted, as always. I told her I wanted to have a family dinner, that it had been a long time since the 3 of us had gotten together, that I had something important to tell them. There was a silence. Then she asked, "Is it something bad, Mama? Are you sick?" Her concern sounded fake, practiced. I told her no, that I wasn't sick, that I just wanted to see them, that I wanted to talk to them, that it was important. She accepted. She said she would be there. I hung up and called Malik. The conversation was almost identical. He also accepted. He also asked if I was sick. He also sounded like he was doing something else while talking to me. But they confirmed. Both of them said they would come. I marked the date on the calendar. 3 weeks, 21 days, 504 hours. I started counting backward. During those 3 weeks, I prepared everything meticulously. I made a list of what I needed to tell them, what I needed to show them, and how the evening would unfold. I rehearsed it in front of the mirror. I practiced my voice, my tone, my words. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be firm. I also prepared the evidence. I printed the screenshots from their social media, the conversations where they mocked me, the photos of their luxurious lives while they asked me for money, the receipts for all the money I had given them over the last 5 years. Everything organized, everything numbered, everything ready to show them. Avery prepared official documents for me, a letter where I declared that I was withdrawing all financial support from my children, that they would not receive another cent from me, that they had to fend for themselves, that they were adults, and it was time for them to act like it. Copies of the new will, copies of the changes to my bank accounts, everything legal, everything signed. I also prepared envelopes, 3 envelopes, one for Tanisha, one for Malik, one for Ellie. In Ellie's envelope, I put a thank you note and $500, the money she had lent me, plus a little extra for her friendship, for her loyalty, for being the only person who treated me like a human being. In Tanisha's envelope, I put the keys to a safe deposit box. Inside that box were things from her father, photos, letters, memories, things that might matter to her. Maybe not, but it was the only thing she would inherit from me while I was alive. In Malik's envelope, I put the same keys to another safe deposit box with things from his father, with memories from his childhood, material things they could keep because I no longer needed them, because where I was going, there was no room for the past. The days passed slowly. Every day, I felt more nervous, more anxious, but also surer, more convinced. There were moments when I doubted, moments when I thought that maybe I was being too harsh, too cruel. But then I remembered. I remembered Mother's Day. I remembered the lies. I remembered how they called me the old woman, and the doubt disappeared. Ellie came over every day. She helped me with the preparations. She listened to me rehearse. She told me I was doing well, that I was being strong, that I was being brave. Her support was the only thing that kept me firm. A week before the dinner, I got a call from Malik. He needed money again, $500 to fix his car. He said it had broken down, that he needed the car to work, that if he didn't fix it, he would lose his job. The same old story, the same script. I told him I didn't have it. I told him to wait until after dinner, that we would talk then. He got upset. He said he couldn't wait, that it was urgent. I repeated that I didn't have it. He hung up angry. 2 days later, I saw a photo on his social media of the new car, the same car I had seen him in with the young girl, running perfectly, without any problems. Lies. Always lies. They weren't even trying to make the lies believable anymore. The day of the dinner arrived, Saturday. I got up early. I cleaned the whole house, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved it. Because I wanted my last dinner in this house, as the mother of Tanisha and Malik, to be dignified. I wanted everything to be perfect. I cooked all day. I made their favorite childhood dishes: roast chicken, scalloped potatoes, fresh salad, homemade bread, and chocolate dessert. I didn't do it to please them. I did it to remind them, to let them know exactly what they were losing. I set the table with the best of everything I had: the good china, the silverware I had inherited from my mother, the crystal glasses, the embroidered tablecloths, everything. The table looked beautiful, dignified, as a Last Supper should look. By 6 o'clock in the evening, everything was ready: the food, the table, the envelopes, the documents. I took a bath. I put on my best dress, a simple, elegant black one. I did my hair and put on a little makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a different woman, a woman who was no longer afraid, a woman ready to speak the truth. They arrived at 7, together, in Malik's car. I watched them arrive through the window. They were laughing, talking. They got out of the car and walked toward the house as if it were nothing, as if this were just another dinner, as if I were the same old me. I opened the door before they could knock. I greeted them with a smile, a calm, firm smile. "Come in," I said. "I was expecting you." They came in. Tanisha gave me a kiss on the cheek, one of those quick, meaningless kisses. Malik gave me a hug, a brief, mechanical one. They sat down in the living room and looked around. Tanisha commented that the house looked nice. Malik asked what I had cooked. I offered them something to drink. They accepted. I served them wine, a cheap wine I had bought especially for this occasion. I wasn't going to waste the good wine on them. We talked about unimportant things, the weather, traffic, their jobs, superficial, empty conversation, as always. I listened to them, nodded and smiled when necessary, but inside I was counting the minutes, waiting for the right moment. After half an hour, I told them dinner was ready. We moved to the dining room. They sat down and looked at the table. Tanisha said everything looked delicious. Malik asked if it was a special occasion. I told them yes, it was very special, but I would explain after dinner. We ate. They talked amongst themselves. I barely spoke. I just observed them, studied them. I tried to find something in them that would make me doubt, something that would make me change my mind, something of the children they once were, some sign of true love. But I found nothing. I only saw two selfish adults eating at my table, enjoying my food, waiting to see what they could get out of me this time. We finished dinner. I cleared the dishes. Tanisha offered to help. I told her it wasn't necessary, to stay seated, that I would be right back. I went to the kitchen and took a deep breath. This was the moment. There was no turning back. I returned to the dining room with a tray. On the tray were the 3 envelopes, the documents, the evidence. I placed everything in the center of the table. They looked at the tray with curiosity, with expectation, probably thinking there was money or deeds or something they could take. I sat down, looked them both in the eyes, Tanisha first, then Malik, and started to speak. My voice sounded firmer than I expected, clearer, stronger. I told them I had called them because I had something important to tell them, something I had been keeping inside for a long time, something I couldn't keep quiet about anymore. They nodded, waiting, still not understanding. I told them I knew everything, that I knew about their lies, that I knew how they talked about me, that I knew they called me the old woman, that I knew they mocked me while I gave them my last dime, that I knew their emergencies were lies, that their urgent debts were invented, that everything was false. Their faces changed. Tanisha's smile disappeared. Malik's eyes widened. They tried to speak. They tried to interrupt. I held up my hand. "No," I said. "It's my turn to talk now. You've had years to talk, years to lie. Now you listen to me." I took out the first envelope, the one that contained the screenshots. I put them one by one on the table in front of them so they could see them, so they couldn't deny it. There were their conversations, their mockery, their plans to get money from me, everything printed, everything real, everything undeniable. Tanisha went pale. Malik was motionless. He stared at the papers as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing, as if they couldn't believe I had discovered their secret. "Mama," Tanisha began, "I didn't mean to say," I interrupted her. "I'm not interested in what you meant to say. I'm interested in what you said, and what you said was enough." Malik tried to justify himself. "Mama, that was months ago. We were just kidding. We didn't mean it." I looked him directly in the eyes. "Don't lie to me anymore, Malik. Don't disrespect me by continuing to lie to me in my own house. Those conversations were from 2 weeks ago. And you weren't kidding. You were saying what you really think of me." I took out more papers, the receipts, the entire list of the money I had given them over 5 years, $20,000 in total. I put it in front of them. $20,000, I said. "That's what I gave you in 5 years. Money you asked for emergencies, for urgent debts, for survival. Or so you told me." Then I took out the photos from their social media. Tanisha in expensive restaurants, Malik with his new car, both of them on trips, both of them in designer clothes, both of them living lives they clearly could afford while telling me they were broke, while asking me for money I didn't have. "This is what you were doing with my money," I said. "While I ate cheap rice and beans to save, while I stopped buying my medicine to give to you, while I broke myself so you could be comfortable, you spent my sacrifice on luxuries, on whims, on things you didn't need. Tanisha tried to speak. Mama, let me explain. There is nothing to explain, I said. The numbers don't lie. The photos don't lie. Your own words don't lie. The only ones lying here are you, and you have been doing it for years. Malik got up from his chair. This is ridiculous, Mama. You're overreacting. You're attacking us over some private conversations. Everyone says things they don't mean when they're with friends. I watched him stand up. I didn't move. He didn't intimidate me. Sit down, Malik. I'm not finished. Something in my voice made him obey. He sat down. Tanisha had tears in her eyes, fake tears. Tears of shame at being caught, not tears of true remorse. I knew the difference. I told them about Mother's Day. I told them exactly how I felt. I told them I confirmed with them the day before, that they said they would come, that I prepared everything, that I waited, that I cried all afternoon in that empty room while they were at a party, while they were having fun, while they didn't care about me at all. Tanisha sobbed. Mama, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. We should have come. A mistake? I repeated. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is being late. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose a party over your mother. You chose your friends over me. And then you had the nerve to come here that same night and ask me for money. Malik had his head down. He wouldn't look at me. He knew he had no defense. He knew everything I was saying was true. I told them that the night they arrived asking for $3,000 was when something shifted inside me, when I understood that it was never going to be enough, that I was never going to be important to them, that I was just a source of funds. I took out the documents Avery had prepared, the new will, the bank changes. This is what I came to tell you tonight, I said. This is the important announcement I had to make. I showed them the will. I explained that I had changed everything, that they would no longer inherit automatically, that I had decided what to do with my things, with my money, with my life. Tanisha stopped crying. She looked at me with wide eyes. What does that mean, Mama? It means I took control, I replied. It means you won't manipulate me anymore. It means you won't lie to me anymore. It means you won't get another cent from me. It's over. Malik stood up again. This is crazy. You can't do this. We're your children. We have rights. I looked at him coldly. You have a right to nothing. I worked for every cent I have. I broke my back to give you everything, and you paid me back with lies and contempt. So yes, I can do this. And I already have. I showed them the bank papers. I explained that I had opened a new account, that most of my money was there, that they didn't have access, that they would never have access, that what I decided to do with that money was my business, not theirs. Tanisha stood up. Her face changed. Sadness turned to rage. This is what that snake Ellie told you, right? She put these ideas in your head. She's manipulating you. I looked at her with pity. Ellie is the only person who has treated me with dignity in years, the only one who listens to me, the only one who cares about me as a person and not as an ATM. So don't you dare speak ill of her. Malik started pacing. This can't be happening. This can't be real. We've always loved you, Mama. We've always been there for you. I laughed, a dry, humorless laugh. Been there for me? Where have you been? Malik, where were you on Mother's Day? Where were you on my birthday? Where were you when I was sick last year? Where were you when I needed you? He didn't answer. He couldn't answer, because the truth was, they were never there. They only showed up when they needed something. They only called me when they wanted money. The rest of the time, I didn't exist to them. I handed them the envelopes with their names on them. These are for you, I said. Open them if you want, or don't open them. I don't care anymore. Tanisha opened hers with trembling hands, took out the keys, and looked at the paper that explained they were for a safe deposit box with things from her father. Nothing else? Is this it? She asked. Her voice sounded incredulous. That's it, I confirmed. Malik didn't even open his. He left it on the table. The three of us looked at each other in silence. a heavy silence, full of painful truths, full of years of mistakes, full of a relationship that had been broken for a long time, and that I was just admitting. Tanisha tried one last resort. "Mama, please, can we fix this? We can change. We can be better children. Give me a chance." I shook my head. "You had years of chances. Every Mother's Day I spent alone was a chance to change. Every time I gave you money I didn't have was a chance to be grateful. Every time I forgave you was a chance to be different. There are no more chances left." Malik came up to me. He took me by the shoulders. "Mama, this is a mistake. You're angry. I understand, but don't make decisions you're going to regret. We're your family. We're all you have." I removed his hands from my shoulders. "Exactly, Malik. You're all I have. And that's very sad, because what I have is nothing. 2 children who don't love me, who only use me, who only remember I exist when they need something." I told them to leave, that dinner was over, that I had said everything I had to say, that there was nothing more to talk about. Tanisha started crying again. This time, maybe they were real tears, tears of realizing what they had lost, or maybe just tears of rage. I didn't care anymore. Malik stood there looking at me as if I were a stranger, and perhaps I was. Perhaps he never truly knew me. Perhaps he never bothered to know me. To him, I was always just Mama, the person who gives, the person who fixes problems, the person who is always there. Never Vivian, never a person with feelings, with dreams, with dignity. I walked to the door. I opened it and waited there for them. "Go," I said, and this time my voice didn't tremble. This time, I didn't feel guilt. This time I only felt peace, a strange peace, the peace of having told the truth, the peace of having defended myself, the peace of having chosen my dignity over their comfort. Tanisha walked past first, crying, without looking at me. Malik followed her. He stopped at the door. "This isn't over, Mama. We'll talk when you've calmed down." "There will be no more conversations," I told him. "This is final. Go." He left. I watched them walk toward the car. I saw them get in. I saw Malik slam his hand on the steering wheel in anger. I saw Tanisha wiping her tears. I saw the car start. I watched the taillights disappear down the street, and when they vanished completely, I closed the door. I stood there in the entryway, alone, in silence. I expected to feel something. Sadness, regret, fear. But I felt none of that. I only felt relief. A deep relief. Like taking off a shoe that has been hurting you all day. Like letting go of a weight you have carried for so long that you forgot what it feels like to be without it. I went back to the dining room. I looked at the table, the dirty dishes, the scattered papers, the open envelopes, all the mess of the truth. I started clearing up. I washed the dishes, put away the food, and cleaned the table. And with every item I put away, I felt that I was also putting away a piece of the past, a piece of the old Vivian, the one who endured, the one who kept quiet, the one who settled for crumbs. That Vivian was staying here, in this house, in this life, because in 2 months, the new Vivian would get on a bus and never look back. The days after that dinner were strange, silent. I expected them to call me, to look for me, to try to make things right, but they didn't. A week passed, then 2. Not a call, not a text, nothing. It was as if I had ceased to exist for them. At first, it hurt. I won't lie. It hurt to realize that even after everything, even after showing them the truth, they didn't care enough to try to win me back. But then I understood something. Their silence was the confirmation I needed, the final proof that I had made the right decision. Ellie came over every day. She brought me company. She helped me pack, because I had started packing, little by little, 1 box at a time. Clothes I was going to take, books, old photographs. Not many things, just the essentials. Because where I was going, I didn't need the past. I only needed enough to start over. I hired a real estate lawyer. I put the house up for sale, the house where I had lived for 42 years, the house where I raised my children, the house where my husband died, the house full of memories, some good, most painful. It was time to let it go. The lawyer told me he could get a good price, $100,000. It was an old house, but in a decent neighborhood. There were interested buyers. He said we could close the sale in a month. Perfect, I told him, just in time. I didn't tell Tanisha or Malik that I was selling the house. I didn't owe them an explanation. This house was mine. It was in my name. I had paid for it with my labor, with Marcus's pension money, and with my own savings over all those years. They had no right to it while I was alive. I started giving things away, old furniture, appliances I no longer needed. I gave them to the neighbors, to the people in the neighborhood who had always been kind to me, people who greeted me on the street, who asked how I was, people who treated me with more respect than my own children. Ms. Eva Carter from the corner took the dining room table, the same table where I had just had that dinner with Tanisha and Malik. She was so happy. She hugged me. She thanked me 1,000 times. She told me she would take good care of it, and I knew it was in better hands than if I had left it to my children. Mr. George Thomas from the building next door took the sofa. I gave the television to the lady who sold flowers on the corner. Everything that left the house made me feel lighter, as if I were casting off moorings, preparing to float. One afternoon, 3 weeks after the dinner, there was a knock at my door. It was Tanisha, alone. She had a look of great consequence on her face, as if she had rehearsed what she was going to say. I let her in, not because I had forgiven her, but because I was curious to see what she wanted. She sat down in one of the few remaining chairs and looked around. She noticed things were missing. "Where's the sofa?" she asked. "I gave it away," I replied. Her face crumpled. "You gave it away? But that sofa was family property." "Yes," I said, "it was my family property. My family with your father, not your family. Now it belongs to someone who will appreciate it." Tanisha took a deep breath. "Mama, I came to talk, to try to fix things. I came to apologize." I looked at her without expression. "Go ahead," I said. "I'm listening." She started talking. She told me she had been thinking, that she had realized they had acted wrongly, that she regretted treating me that way, that she wanted a second chance. I listened to it all. When she finished, I asked her, "Did Malik realize it too? Does he also want to apologize?" She looked down. "He's a little more resistant. He says you exaggerated. He says you were too harsh. But I don't think so. I think you have every right to be angry." "A little more resistant," I repeated. "So he didn't come because he genuinely doesn't care. Only you came, and you came because you're worried about losing the inheritance, not because you genuinely care about me." Tanisha shook her head. "No, Mama, it's not about that. It's because I love you, because you're my mother, because I don't want to lose you." I got up, walked to the window, and looked out at the street. "You don't want to lose me," I said. "But you lost me years ago, Tanisha, when you decided your parties were more important than me, when you decided that lying to me was okay, when you decided that calling me the old woman with your brother was acceptable. You lost me in every moment you chose not to value me." "But we can make up for lost time," she said. Her voice sounded desperate. "We can start over now. I can be better. I can visit you more. I can call you more often. We can do brunch together, whatever you want." I turned around and looked at her. "It's too late for that," I told her. Then I told her I had sold the house, that I was leaving, that I had bought a bus ticket to a place where she wouldn't be able to find me, that I was going to start a new life, a life where Vivian Sterling wouldn't just be someone's mother, where she would simply be Vivian. Her face went pale. "You're leaving? Where? When? For how long?" Those were the wrong questions. The right questions would have been, "Why are you leaving? What did we do to make you reach this point? How can we make you stay?" But she didn't ask them, because deep down, she only cared about knowing where her inheritance would be. "I'm not going to tell you where," I replied, "or exactly when. And I'm not going for a little while. I'm leaving forever." Tanisha stood up. "Mama, this is crazy. You can't just leave. What are people going to say? What are we going to say when they ask about you?" There was her real concern. What are people going to say? "They'll say whatever they want," I said. "They can say I died. They can say I went crazy. They can say whatever makes them feel better. It's not my problem anymore. You two stopped being my problem." She started crying. Real tears this time, or at least they seemed real, but they didn't move me anymore. I had cried enough for both of them. "You can't do this to us," she said through sobs. "We're your children. We need you." "You don't need me," I replied. "You need my money. You need the security of having an inheritance waiting for you. You need to be able to say you have a mother when it's convenient, but me, the person I am, you have never needed." She tried to hug me. I took a step back. "No, Tanisha, not anymore. The fake hugs are over. The empty words are over. It's all over. I want you to leave. And when you close that door, understand that you are closing it forever. The next time you come here, if you come at all, this house won't be mine, and I won't be here." She stood there, looking at me as if she didn't recognize me, and she was right not to recognize me because I didn't recognize myself either. This new Vivian was someone I had never been before. Someone who defended herself, someone who said no, someone who chose her own happiness over guilt. Tanisha walked toward the door. She stopped and turned around. "If you change your mind," she said, "if you decide to stay, if you decide to give us another chance, please call me." "I'm not going to change my mind," I said. "This is my final decision, and it's the best decision I've ever made in my entire life." She left. She closed the door slowly, as if closing it slowly could make it hurt less. I stood there, waiting to feel something, guilt, sadness, regret, but I only felt more peace, more clarity, more certainty that I was doing the right thing. That night, Ellie came for dinner. I told her about Tanisha's visit, about what she had said, about how she had left. Ellie listened to me while we ate the soup she had prepared. When I finished talking, she just said, "I'm proud of you, Vivian. So proud." Those words touched my soul, because no one had told me that in years. No one had been proud of me. My children never were. Marcus perhaps was, but he never said it aloud. Ellie was the first person in decades who made me feel like I was doing something right, something brave, something important. I gave her the envelope with her name on it. She opened it, saw the money, and tried to give it back to me. "No, Vivian, this is too much. I don't need it. I lent it to you from the heart." "Ellie," I insisted, "you have been more family to me in these last few months than my children have been in years. Please accept it, not just as payment, but as thanks for seeing me, for listening to me, for treating me like a person." She finally accepted. She hugged me, a real hug, one of those that mean something, one of those that makes you feel that you are not alone in the world. We cried together, but they weren't sad tears. They were tears of liberation, of friendship, of two older women who understood each other without needing explanations. The following days were a whirlwind. The house buyer rushed the process. He wanted to close in 2 weeks. "Perfect," I said. "The faster, the better." I signed papers, documents, transfers, everything legal, everything necessary so that when I left, there would be no loose ends. Avery helped me with everything. He made sure the sale money went to my new account, the account my children didn't know about, $100,000. It was more money than I had ever had in my life, and it was all mine to do whatever I wanted with. I only withdrew what I needed in cash, $5,000. The rest I left safe in the bank, protected, for my new life, for emergencies, for whatever. But no one but me would have access. No one but me would decide what to do with it. A week before I left, I received a text from Malik. It was the first time I had heard from him since the dinner. The message said, "Mama, Tanisha told me you're leaving. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, please reconsider. Don't do anything crazy. Think about us. Think about the family." I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I deleted the message. I blocked his number. I did the same with Tanisha's number. I didn't want their texts anymore. I didn't want their calls anymore. I didn't want anything from them. The moving day came. People from a company came. They took the few boxes I had prepared. I sent them by package delivery to Coastal Haven, to a small hotel where I would stay for the first few weeks while I looked for a permanent place. Everything was organized, everything was planned, everything was ready. The house was empty, completely empty. I walked through the rooms one last time. The room where I slept with Marcus, the room where Tanisha and Malik grew up, the kitchen where I prepared thousands of meals, the living room where I cried on that Mother's Day that changed everything. I said goodbye to every space, not with nostalgia, but with acceptance. This house held my past, but I was going toward my future, and the future didn't need these walls. It didn't need these memories. It only needed a 70-year-old woman with a bus ticket and a small suitcase. I closed the door for the last time. I gave the keys to the lawyer. I signed the last paper, and just like that, the house stopped being mine. 42 years of history closed with one signature and a handshake. And I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I just walked forward. Ellie took me to her house that last night. I slept on her sofa. We talked late into the night about life, about dreams, about the ocean I was about to see. She told me to visit her when I could. I promised her I would, and it was a promise I intended to keep. The day of my departure dawned with a clear sky, as if the universe knew I needed a good day to start my new life. I got up early. Ellie had already made coffee. We had breakfast together in silence. A comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between true friends. My bus left at 10 o'clock in the morning. Ellie drove me to the terminal. I carried my only suitcase, a small suitcase with the essentials, clothes, documents, some old photographs, not of my children. I left those behind. Only photos of Marcus, of my parents, of moments worth remembering. We arrived at the terminal an hour early. We sat on a bench holding hands, like two sisters saying goodbye. Ellie's eyes were moist. "Vivian," she said, "you're going to be okay. I know you're going to be okay. You're going to find the peace you deserve." "I know," I replied. And for the first time in a long time, I really believed it. Then, something I didn't expect happened. While we were sitting there, I saw someone familiar. It was Tanisha. She was walking quickly toward me. Malik was following behind her. My heart sped up. How had they found me? How did they know? They came up to me. Tanisha was breathless. "Mama, thank God we found you!" Malik looked at my suitcase, my ticket in hand, the reality that I was leaving finally sinking in for them. Ellie stood up, placing herself between them and me, as if protecting me. "What are you doing here?" she asked them. Tanisha ignored her. "Mama, you can't leave like this, please. We have to talk." Malik nodded. "This is insane. You're our mother. You can't just disappear." I looked at them, calm, calmer than I thought I would be. "How did you know I would be here?" I asked. Tanisha hesitated. Then she spoke. "I called Ellie. I begged her to tell me. I told her we needed to say goodbye to you, that we needed to talk one last time." I looked at Ellie. She shook her head. "I'm sorry, Vivian. She called crying. She said she just wanted to say goodbye. I thought maybe it would be good. I thought maybe you needed that closure." I wasn't angry with Ellie. I understood why she did it. She had a good heart. She thought she was doing the right thing. "It's okay," I said. "It's fine." I stood up. I faced my children. "You have 5 minutes," I told them. "Tell me what you came to say." Malik spoke first. "Mama, you sold the house. Our house. The house we grew up in. Without even telling us, without asking us. How could you?" I looked at him directly. "That house was mine, Malik, not yours, not Tanisha's. Mine. I paid for it. I lived in it. I decided what to do with it. You have no right to it." "But it's our inheritance," Tanisha said. "It's what you were going to leave us. It's our future." "Your inheritance," I repeated. "Your future. It's interesting that you only think about what you will receive when I die, never about what you could give me while I'm alive. Never about how you could make my last years good. Only about what you will inherit." "That's not true," Malik said. "Of course, we think about you. Of course, you matter to us. I laughed, a bitter laugh. If I mattered to you, you wouldn't be here complaining about the house. You would be asking me why I'm leaving, asking me if I'm okay, asking me what I need. But no, you only care about the money, as always. Tanisha started crying again. Mama, please, don't leave hating us. Don't leave like this. We can change. I swear we can. We can be better. Give me a chance. Give me time to show you I can be the daughter you deserve. I looked at her. You had 50 years to be that daughter, Tanisha. 50 years. I don't have any more time left to wait. I took 2 envelopes from my purse, the last 2 envelopes I had prepared. I handed them over, one for each of them. This is the last thing you will receive from me, I said. Open them when you leave. Not now, when you leave. Tanisha took her envelope with trembling hands. Malik left his in his pocket without looking at it. What's inside? Malik asked. A letter, I replied, telling you everything I couldn't say all these years, everything I kept quiet, everything I endured, everything you deserved to hear a long time ago, and also something else, something you need to know. Tanisha opened her envelope, despite me telling her to wait. She took out the letter and started reading. Her face changed. She paled. She looked at Malik. Malik, you have to read this. He took out his envelope and read too. Both of them looked at me with expressions of shock. In those letters, I had written the complete truth. I told them about every sacrifice. Every time I ate less so they could eat more. Every time I skipped buying my medicine to pay for their school. Every time I worked sick so they could have new clothes. I included numbers, dates, details they never knew or chose to ignore. I also told them about the money. I told them exactly how much I had received from the sale of the house, $100,000. I told them that they wouldn't see a cent of that money while I was alive, that I would use it to live out my last years as I wished, without asking anyone for permission, without feeling guilty. I explained that I had changed my will, that when I died, the little that remained would be divided as follows: 50% for Ellie for being the only person who treated me with dignity, 25% for a charity organization that helps abandoned elderly women, and 25% divided between the 2 of them, if they were still alive to receive it. This can't be legal, Malik said. There has to be some law that protects children, that gives us a right to inheritance. I looked at him with pity. It is completely legal, Malik. Avery made sure of that. I have every right to do what I want with my money, with my property, with my life, and this is what I chose to do. Tanisha was still crying. But Mama, you don't have to leave. Stay. Live close to us. We can take care of you. We can be more present, please. I already bought the ticket, I said. I already closed the sale. I already said goodbye. There is no turning back. This is final. They announced my bus. Departure to Coastal Haven, gate number 6, final call. It was my signal, my moment. I picked up my suitcase. Ellie hugged me tightly. Take good care, she whispered in my ear. Write me when you arrive. Call me when you can. And above all, be happy. You deserve it. I promised her. I turned to leave. Tanisha grabbed my arm. Mama, wait, please. Just tell me one thing. Do you hate us? I stopped. I looked her in the eyes. I don't hate you, I said, but I don't love you enough to keep sacrificing myself for you either. And that's the difference. Love has to be mutual. It has to be reciprocal. And ours never was. Malik stepped forward. Then what are we now? What are we to you? Nothing, I replied, and the word sounded harsher than I intended, but it was the truth. You are nothing to me because I was always nothing to you, just a source of funds, just an obligation, just someone who was there because she had to be. Now I don't have to be, and I chose not to be. I walked toward the boarding gate. They followed me a few steps. Then they stopped, as if they finally understood that there was nothing else to do, nothing else to say, that this was real, that their mother was truly leaving, and that they had caused it. I showed my ticket. The driver checked my bag. He told me to get on board. I climbed the steps of the bus and found my seat. It was next to the window. I sat down and looked outside. Ellie was there, smiling at me, waving goodbye. Tanisha and Malik were behind her, motionless, watching as the bus prepared to leave. The engine started. The bus began to move, slowly at first, then faster. I watched Ellie get smaller. I saw my children standing there, unmoving, probably processing what had just happened, processing that their mother had left them, that their source of money was gone, that they no longer had anyone to turn to when they needed something. The bus pulled out of the terminal and onto the highway. The city began to disappear behind me. The streets I knew, the familiar buildings, the neighborhood where I lived my whole life. Everything was being left behind. And with every mile we traveled, I felt that I was breathing better, that my chest was expanding, that my heart was beating more calmly. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. I thought about everything I had left behind, the house, the memories, my children, my entire life. I thought about everything I had gained: freedom, dignity, the chance to be myself, to live for me, to see the ocean. I opened my eyes and looked out the window. The landscape was changing. It was no longer buildings. It was fields, trees, mountains in the distance. Beauty I had never stopped to appreciate because I was always too busy, too tired, too worried about others. An older lady was sitting across the aisle. She smiled at me. "Traveling alone?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, I'm traveling alone to start a new life." She smiled wider. "How brave," she said. "At our age, there are still people who dare to start over. I congratulate you." I thanked her, and I realized that I was brave, that leaving everything known to seek something better required courage. And I had it. The bus continued its journey. Hours passed. We stopped in some cities. People got on. People got off. I stayed in my seat, watching the world go by, feeling every mile like a liberation, like one more step toward the woman I should have always been. I thought about Tanisha and Malik. I wondered if they would be okay, if they would ever understand, if they would regret it. But then I stopped wondering, because it was no longer my responsibility. It was no longer my burden. They were adults. They had made their decisions, and I had made mine. I took out a new notebook I had bought. I opened the first page. I wrote, "My name is Vivian Sterling. I'm 70 years old, and today I begin to live for the first time in my life. I begin to live for me." The bus arrived at Coastal Haven at dawn the next day. I had traveled all night. I had barely slept, not because of discomfort, but because of excitement, because of anticipation. For the first time in decades, I felt something akin to hope, the hope that something good was coming. I got off the bus with my suitcase. The air smelled different. It smelled of salt, of the sea, of something new. The terminal was small, clean, and quiet. Nothing like the chaos of the city I had left behind. I took a cab. I gave the address of the hotel, a simple place I had booked online with Ellie's help. The cab drove through narrow streets, past low houses painted in light colors, past people walking slowly, without haste, without the stress that permeated the city. We passed the boardwalk, and there I saw it, the immense ocean, shimmering under the morning sun. I was breathless. I had never seen the ocean. 70 years of life, and I had never seen the ocean. It was always a distant dream, something other people did, something I never had time or money for. But now, it was right in front of me. Real, beautiful, waiting for me. The hotel was small but cozy. The owner's name was Brenda Hayes, a woman in her 60s, kind with a ready smile. She welcomed me as if she had known me forever. "Welcome to Coastal Haven," she said. "You're going to be very happy here." I had a feeling she was right. My room faced the ocean directly. I opened the window. The breeze rushed in, fresh, salty, full of possibilities. I sat on the bed, looked at that infinite horizon and cried, but not from sadness, from relief, from gratitude, for having arrived, for having had the courage to arrive. I unpacked my few things, took a shower, put on clean clothes, and went down for breakfast. Brenda served me coffee and freshly baked bread. We talked. I told her I had come to start over, that I was looking for a permanent place to live. She told me she knew some options, small, cheap houses with an ocean view. After breakfast, I went for a walk. I walked along the boardwalk, slowly, without rushing, looking at everything. The sea, the seagulls, the fishermen, the local people. Everything was so different, so calm, so far from the life I knew. I sat on a bench facing the ocean, closed my eyes, and listened to the waves, the most beautiful sound I had ever heard in my life. A sound that filled me with peace, that told me I had done the right thing, that I deserved to be here, that I deserved this new opportunity. A woman sat next to me. She was older than me, perhaps 80 years old. She wore a large hat and dark glasses. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," I replied. "Beautiful day," she commented. "Every day is beautiful here." I smiled at her. "It's my first day in Coastal Haven." She nodded. "I know. It shows on your face, that face of someone who has just discovered something wonderful." She said her name was Miss Gloria Jenkins, that she had lived there for 20 years, that she, too, had come to escape something, a life she could no longer bear, people who hurt her, and that it had been the best decision of her life. I felt identified. We talked for hours. She told me about the town, the people, the pretty places, what life was like there, quiet, simple, without the complications of the city. She told me there was a community of older women, women who, like us, had come seeking peace, seeking to start over. She invited me to a group that met on Tuesdays, a reading group, a knitting group, a conversation group, a friendship group. I accepted without hesitation. For the first time in years, I wanted to socialize. I wanted to meet people. I wanted to make friends, because now I had time. I had energy. I had the desire to live. The following days were spent exploring. Brenda took me to see several small houses. I saw 5, 6, 7, until I found the perfect one, a small single-story house, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, a small front yard, and a back deck with a direct ocean view. It cost $50,000. I had the money. I could pay for it. I made an offer that same day. The owner accepted. We closed the deal in 2 weeks. I signed papers, transferred the money, and just like that, for the first time in my life, I bought a house that was only mine, not shared with a husband, not thinking about leaving it to my children, just mine, for me, to live as I wished. I moved in a week later. I bought simple furniture, new, without history, without painful memories, a comfortable bed, a small sofa, a table to eat at while looking at the ocean, white curtains that let in the light, everything clean, everything new, everything mine. I started a routine. I got up early, made coffee, sat on the deck, and watched the sunrise over the ocean, something I never thought I would do. Then I walked on the beach, collected shells, dipped my feet in the cold water. I felt alive in a way I had never felt. In the afternoons, I read books I had always wanted to read but never had time for. I wrote in my diary things I was thinking, things I was feeling, things I wanted to remember. At night, I cooked for myself, food that I liked, without thinking about anyone else. Just me. I joined Gloria's group. I met other women, Ms. Eva Carter, 68, Mr. Ronald Davis, 75, and others, all with similar stories. All had left something behind. Difficult families, painful marriages, ungrateful children, all seeking the same thing, peace, dignity, a second chance. We quickly became friends. We met twice a week, sometimes more. We drank tea, knitted, talked, laughed, and shared our stories without judgment, without pity, only with understanding, with that deep comprehension that only comes from having lived the same things. Months passed. I called Ellie every week. I told her about my life, my house, the ocean, my new friends. She told me about the city, about the neighbors. She never mentioned Tanisha or Malik, and I never asked. That chapter was closed. I didn't want to reopen it. One day, 6 months after my arrival, Ellie told me something. "Vivian, your children have been looking for me. They ask about you several times. They want to know where you are. They want to know if you're okay. I haven't told them anything, but I thought you should know." I thanked her. I told her to do what she thought was right, but that I wasn't ready to talk to them. Maybe I never would be ready. The truth is, I thought about them sometimes, not much, but sometimes. I wondered if they had learned anything, if they had changed, if they regretted it. But then I remembered that it was no longer my responsibility, that I had done my part, that I had given them 50 years, and that now these years belonged to me. I turned 71 in Coastal Haven. My friends threw me a small, intimate party with homemade cake and candles. They sang happy birthday. They hugged me. They told me they loved me, and I believed them because their affection was real, unconditional, not self-interested, just pure, true. Gloria gave me a painting she had done. It was the ocean, my ocean, the one I saw every morning from my deck. I hung it in my living room, right across from where I sat, to remind me every day how far I had come, how brave I had been, how much I had gained by choosing myself. One afternoon I was sitting on my deck watching the sunset. The sky was painted with oranges and pinks. The waves gently broke on the shore. I had a cup of tea in my hands. I was at peace, completely at peace. I thought about the Vivian I was, the woman who got up at 5 in the morning to serve others, the woman who cried alone in an empty room, the woman who settled for crumbs of affection. That Vivian had stayed in that city, in that house, in that life. The Vivian I was now was different. She was a woman who had chosen herself, who had taken the reins of her own life, who had said enough, who had had the courage to start over when everyone thought it was too late. I took out my diary and opened a blank page. I wrote the words I had been saving, the words I needed to say, the words that closed one chapter and opened another. My name is no longer theirs. I am no longer just Tanisha and Malik's mother. I am no longer just Marcus's widow. I am no longer the woman who gives and gives until she has nothing. My name is Vivian. Simply Vivian, a 71-year-old woman who lives by the ocean, who has true friends, who wakes up happy, who goes to sleep peacefully, who knows the taste of freedom, who learned that it's never too late to choose herself. My story with them ended, but my story is just beginning, and this story is only mine. No one can take it from me. No one can ruin it, because I finally learned the most important lesson of all, that self-love is not selfishness, that taking care of yourself is not betrayal, that choosing your happiness is not cruelty. I closed the diary and looked at the ocean. The waves continued their eternal rhythm, rising and falling like life itself, like endings, which are also beginnings, like goodbyes, which are also welcomes. The sun finished setting. The stars began to appear one by one, filling the dark sky with light. I stayed seated there, breathing the salty air, listening to the sea, feeling complete. For the first time in 71 years, I felt complete. Not because someone completed me, but because I had finally found myself, the Vivian who was always there, waiting, awaiting her moment, her opportunity, her time. And that time had arrived. My story was just beginning, and it would be a beautiful story. A story of freedom, of dignity, of a woman who refused to end her life as a footnote in the story of others. A woman who wrote her own ending and her own beginning. I got up and went inside my house by the ocean. I closed the door. I smiled. Tomorrow would be another beautiful day, another day of my new life, another day of simply being Vivian. And that was more than enough. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.